Walk us through the morning of November 30th, 2017. You quit a job on day one. What were you running from, and why do you push back on the phrase midlife crisis?
Okay, wow, that is a big question. The morning of November 30th, 2017, is a day that lives in infamy in my psyche. I had negotiated a consulting job. I was working as a nonprofit fundraising consultant, and after over a decade-long career at Goldman Sachs, I had reinvented myself to do this other work that felt a lot more worthy and that I felt was more me. Um,
Yeah.
but it really wasn't, and, like, the long story short is I quit that job on the day that I was due to start because I woke up that morning. I had gone to bed the night before knowing I didn't wanna do the job. I didn't wanna start the job even though it was so good on paper, I'd negotiated it was what I had been telling everybody I wanted. It was a consulting job, it was walking distance from home, it was raising a large amount of money, it was going to be somewhat transformative for the organization, it was a great organization. There's a lot, um, that I was telling people, I was
Yeah.
excited about. But, in the as I'd been negotiating it, each time I negotiated something like the dollar amount, each time I kept thinking, "They're gonna say no to this." And there was a part of me thinking, "I hope they say no to this," because I clearly didn't really wanna do it. Um, anyway, long story short, I had gone to bed the night before thinking, "Well, I have to do it," knowing I didn't wanna do it, but I've signed on, I'm doing it. I woke up that morning and literally every part of my body refused to do it. I mean, it was like an out of body experience. I put my
No
kids on
way.
Yeah, put my kids on the school bus. My husband was out of town on a business trip, so I luckily didn't have to explain to him what was going on. That might have stopped me. Because he probably would have said, "What the hell? What are you doing?" But it was like I was being sort of like pushed by an invisible hand, and 8 AM. I was due to go to a board meeting that night, and so I was meant to be preparing that day and then showing up to present at their board meeting that night. So at 8 AM, called the guy who was my boss and said, I'm sorry, I can't do it. I'm not gonna be doing this job. I'm sorry, I have to withdraw." And I mean, then there were 3 conversations where at first he was very kind and understanding, like, "What can I do? Do you wanna start next week? Like, how can we it's just after Thanksgiving, maybe you need more time. Like, can we start in January?" Very nice. Second conversation, he was, like, furious. Third conversation, he said, "I'm gonna sue you. You will never work in this town again. You've just blown up your career. You should be ashamed of yourself." It was I mean, fair enough. I really did something really annoying and painful and, in many ways despicable, but essentially what my, I guess, inner self was doing was waking me up, causing a crisis. It was causing a crisis. It was causing me to pay attention to the fact that I had just spent months negotiating a job that I didn't really want. And this was a pattern. I kept doing it over and over again. I kept applying for, talking myself into jobs, getting jobs, and then very quickly thinking, what the hell? I don't want to be here. I don't want to do this. So clearly, what I needed in my life was to take a good look at why I was doing this sort of thing, why I
Mm.
was so unhappy in my career, why I was having such trouble finding something that felt like it was my purpose in life and would give myself kind of the both, I think, intellectual, and emotional challenges that I was looking for. So that was and that's what I did. I forced that by essentially making myself unemployable. So I then had to go figure out what on earth was causing me to behave this way because I had never ever behaved like that before in my life. I'd been a very upstanding citizen.